What's up, everybody? Nick back with you here from Project Central, and today working on the trailer dovetail upcoming video. No spoilers, but I bought a new tool just for this and I want to show you guys. It is the Milwaukee M18 Fuel metal cutting circular saw. Check it out. Bought this because obviously I've got Jeeps, I've got a couple Jeeps, and I like watching a lot of off-road YouTubers. One of them is called TomTom Shop, and he's got this Makita cordless metal cutting circular saw, and I was like, dang, that looks handy. So, got on Amazon. You can buy the tool only. This was under $200, and so I picked this up, but I want to see how does it compare to a regular abrasive blade on a circular saw, and how does it compare to a plasma cutter. I've got both of those, and we're going to test it. And on smaller, thicker items, how does it compare to a portaband? So we're going to be testing all that today, so stay tuned. First off, let's get this thing unboxed and do some first impressions. Getting it out of the box, one thing I gotta say is it is not a big saw. It is little. Let me go grab you my other Milwaukee corded circular saw. Here we go. Right here. You can see, putting these side by side, the new cordless one is quite a bit smaller. So you can see the regular framing 7 1/4 circ saw that I've had for probably a decade is quite a bit bigger. Basically comes with some instruction manuals, and you see why this saw is so much smaller is because it is only a 5 3/8 blade, but it is made for ferrous metals, which is steel. So let's get the blade put on. Make sure the batteries are charged. All right, so we're gonna get the blade. We're gonna get this blade put on. Make sure the batteries are charged and make some cuts. See how it does. All right, so a couple first impressions on the design. Got the blade put in, and that's the first thing I noticed is the clear housing. Right, it's super nice when you're, especially because this one is totally integrated. Right, there's no spot like this saw. You can see the front of the blade is exposed, but this one is totally contained. Obviously the side is open, but the front is totally contained, and making that clear super handy. So the safety is ambidextrous, right, left and right-handed, which is handy, I guess, if you're left-handed. But I really like the positive stop. I don't even know what you call it, but you really have to like be intentional on getting the trigger. So you got to pull this down and then hear the click. It feels like it's intentionally made so you can't just accidentally squeeze it off, because it does have a belt loop on it, or a hook on it, for you to hang it off of stuff. See? So like if you're, I don't know, working on a metal framing crew or whatever, you need to hang it on something, you can do that off your belt. You don't accidentally chop a hole in your leg. So let's throw a battery in there. I've just got some no-name 6 amp hour battery, but it does say it's fully charged, so let's try and get this cut. What we were working with, we're just going to use this bent piece of this plate. This is probably 1/8 inch plate. We're just going to use that as a guide fence, and it is 55 and a half inches long. So let's see how long it takes us to cut it. And I probably shouldn't have to say this, but use ear protection. Y'all, y'all, this thing rocks. Oh my goodness. Beautifully clean cut. Oh, look at this piece of angle I just found. Sweet. That was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I should have bought one of these years ago. Holy cow. I don't know what to say. That was way better than I expected. So, in fairness, I've got a cold cut chop saw. And it does really good on like tubing and stuff. But I never imagined that would work so well. Let's cut some more stuff. Alright, got a straight edge set up. Just use a piece of old 2-inch square tube. Check some measurements. Okay, perfect. 80 inches, right where we want the blade. You know what they say, measure once, cut twice. So that's almost a 5-foot crosscut. It does it in what, 15 seconds, 20 seconds? Man, that thing is great. Love it. Next challenge, I want to see, will it plunge cut? All right, let me show you why we need to do a plunge cut in the middle. It should be pretty simple. Run into a little conflict up here at the drive over fender tube. We're gonna have to notch around it a little bit, I think. No big deal. No big deal. I could cut it down to about 52. That might make sense, because then we wouldn't have to notch around. The drive over fender tube. So I think let's do that. Let's get another long straight edge out. So good. It's made 3 pretty decent long cuts. So I love this thing so much. All right, so we're trying to do some relief cuts. All right, you can see the angle of the dovetail. We really need to make a bend, but I don't want to use 2 different pieces and try and butt them up. It's much easier to do it out of one piece and then just cut some relief cuts and then make some bends. This isn't sketchy at all. So for these relief cuts, we're going to come in 6 inches. You can't really see my Sharpie here. We're going to come in 6 inches. We're going to do a 1-foot cut here, skip 6 inches, do another 1-foot cut. And then we did the same measurements off this side. We're going to come over here 6 inches and do a 1-foot cut, and then we're going to skip 6 inches and do another 1-foot cut. That is going to help us make this bend. So let's see how well she plunge cuts. I've got a fresh battery to put on it, so let me go grab that and then we're going to get started. Well, it'll definitely plunge cut. It just wasn't too happy about it. And I'm sure that'll just take some getting used to. Let's try and get this bent over. Well, that sounded wrong. Let's try and get this bent and put it on the dovetail. So this video is not intended to be a fabrication video. It is a review of the Milwaukee metal cutting circular saw. But that's just what I happened to be doing at the time. And if you want to see the whole video of the mods I did to my trailer, it'll be coming soon, or it'll be posted at the end of this video, depending when you're watching it. Basically though, I did everything I wanted to my trailer, including these pieces here in the middle, which we're going to be cutting next. These pieces are to protect the decking while I'm dragging stuff on with the winch. So let's go get those cut out of some more 1/8 inch plate, where we compare the Milwaukee metal cutting saw versus a circular saw with an abrasive blade. So let's jump right back to the live action. Alright, well, got the batteries on the charger. The batteries for this died. So I guess that's as good of time as any to test what the cold cut saw is versus the abrasive blade on a regular circular saw. So we've got this edge over here is kind of wonky. It looks like they cut it with I don't know, cut off a disc or something. It's all like this. So we've already just cut this straight edge, so now we're gonna cut this edge. We need to go 10. Time to get some new markers for sure. All right, here we go. Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, it worked, but that was not as good as this cold cut saw for sure. It worked. Those blades were listed at Lowe's for like $5 a piece, but when it rang up way cheaper at like, I don't know, $2 a piece. I think they're on clearance or something, but oof, not good. It's hard to give it too bad of a score because technically it did work. And the cut is okay. I'll definitely hit this with a flat disc, but I don't know, 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 at most. Oof. I think it's great. So when we were cutting the last bit of plate, we tested the cold cut, the metal cutting circular saw versus an abrasive blade on the skill saw. Hands down, clear winner. This thing ate the abrasive blade's lunch. But now we're going to test it versus the plasma cutter. We have some shapes to cut out, a little bit of production work. We got to cut out 4 of each. So I'm going to cut out 4 of them with the circular saw. I'm going to cut out 4 of them with the plasma cutter, all out of 1/8 inch plate. I was going to use 3/16, but this is all I've got on hand is this 1/8 inch plate here. So we're going to get these cut out, and I'm going to time to see which one is faster overall. Not which is faster on a one-off, but if you're doing some production work, right, where you're having to build, like I'm having to cut out 8 of these. So we're going to see how that works. Let's time it. All right, so we put up a pretty good time. This first set took right at 14 minutes. Cut out, ready to weld on. This saw eats up this 1/8 inch plate. All right, time to break out the plasma cutter. And what are we using? I've got a Lotus 500D. This was a super duper cheap plasma cutter. I think it only does like 50 amps, so it's not even that strong. But for something like 1/8 inch plate, it'll be perfect. And to keep the test fair, I do have a new set of consumables. I'm gonna throw some new consumables in, and we're gonna basically repeat the same test. I'm gonna cut a strip, lay out a piece, lay out my other piece here. I gotta cut 4 of these. So I'm gonna lay that out, mark it, cut it, and clean it up. Because I wanted the test to be turnkey product, right? And I'll put a new flap wheel on. I've got a fresh one right here. So I'll put a fresh flap disc on to do a pretty good side-to-side comparison. I'm doing it this way because one thing the plasma cutter does is it will leave some slag. So we're gonna see how long it takes that to get cleaned up. A lot of times you can just take a chunk of metal and knock the slag right off, but we're going to get it all cut out. So let's see how long it takes. Felt fast because it was fast. 10 minutes, 37 seconds, almost 3 minutes faster. What does that mean? Well, plasma cutter don't care about no thin plate, that's for sure. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is fit and finish. For longer, straighter cuts, the metal cutting saw absolutely does better. I mean, even freehand, these look pretty good, but you can tell my freehand on the plasma cutter, a little shaky. Weld will cover it all up, it'll look just fine. But if you're doing something where you need like crisp, like super crispy lines, plasma cutter can do that, I think, if you use a straight edge, and if you have more skill than me. I don't use this thing very often. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I was not expecting the plasma cutter to be that fast because it absolutely did a good job. And the edges, you can kind of see the edges that were cut with the plasma cutter with the straight edge, they look really good. I could have absolutely taken some more time and used a straight edge to make all these cuts look really good, but I was going fast. And anyway, so pretty interesting, I think. I'm gonna go weld these on. Oh, I'm gonna go weld all of these on, and then we'll come back. We'll do some more testing here in just a second. All right, so we saw what the metal cutting, the metal cut saw will do versus the plasma cutter on some like thin plate. But how does it fare against like the bandsaw on a little bit thicker stuff? So working on the trailer, we've got some 3/8 angle, right? So nice and thick. We got to cut these. We got to lop these corners off. Basically 45-degree cut, and the length of the cut is really just about 4.5 inches. So about a 4.5 inch cut through some 3/8 plate. Let's see which one does better. Go put this battery in the charger and get a fresh battery. Be right back. We are absolutely going to have to put this in the bench vise, so let's go over there. Holy smokes, that was fast. It's be hard not to put a bunch of Michael Scott jokes in this one. Let's go get the porta band and see if it can keep up with. Alright, porta band we're using is this Bauer flavor from Harbor Freight. I've had this for years. New-ish blade, not super new. So I know most everything else we've been given a new blade. We're at 1:41, so 60 seconds longer. I am absolutely flabbergasted at how good this thing is, especially against the thicker plate. I don't know how long the blade will last going against that thicker plate, but holy smokes, is it faster than the bandsaw. Alright, I think we're at the point of the video for some final thoughts. Let's go sit down and grab a drink. Alright, some final thoughts for the Milwaukee Fuel brushless, cordless, metal cutting circular saw. The little one. This thing is amazing. If you do any sort of fabrication, you should get this. You should buy this. There are some drawbacks to consider. One, it's a little messy. The chips that it makes get everywhere. You get them in your shoes, you track them into the house. Your wife gets mad. They get stuck in your shoes. If you have to lay down on the ground, you're going to get metal chips in your back if you're trying to crawl under a trailer like I've been working on. But overall, there's not that bad. If you have a broom or like a magnet sweeper like I just got, it's manageable. But it is kind of messy. Second, this thing will eat some batteries. And it is pretty battery dependent. I noticed a huge difference in power output from the 3-amp battery to the 6-amp battery. 3-amp battery, it did okay, but the 6-amp battery really did much better. But now let's talk about some of the pros. Clean cuts, clean straight cuts. Get a piece of angle, use it as a straight edge. It's awesome. Clean, super clean cuts that hit it with a flap disc, break the edge over, and it's ready to weld or put on whatever. Also the cost. This was under $200. Tool only. I already had batteries. For under $200, this is going to save so much money in the long run for cutoff discs and plasma cutter consumables. The plasma cutter did do a pretty good job against this when it was working. I went to use the plasma cutter again tonight, and it totally wouldn't work. Don't know what's wrong with it. I think my torch is screwed up. But that's not part of this video. This video is about this brushless saw. It did really good on thick metal. I was shocked that the 3/8 plate I cut earlier did not really seem to affect it. It was way faster, like 3 times faster than the Portaband, which is usually my go-to for thicker metal like that. But if I can get a speed square on it or a straight edge, I'm going to be using this for thick metal from now on, I think. Alright, so overall I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. That is an excellent score. The only reason I'm docking it a point is because it is sort of battery dependent. There is such a discrepancy between the smaller batteries and the bigger batteries on this that, like, I can't give it a perfect score, because if all you've got are the thin, 2 amp hour batteries, this thing is going to struggle. Get some big batteries and this thing is going to eat like nothing else. It was so much better than the circular saw with the abrasive blade. It held its own. I think it held its own against the plasma cutter, and then it whooped up on the bandsaw on that one cut. Granted, those are pretty subjective tests, but I think they're also some pretty common things you're going to be doing in your garage or shop or whatever you're working on. I am super happy that I added this to the toolbox, because it is going to be a go-to for years to come. So let me know if you've used one of these before and what you thought about it. But until next time, do what you always do, everyone. Take care of one another, and I'll see you next time when we are doing some fab work with the metal cutting circular saw. Oh yeah. Bye.